We are excited to welcome tonight's keynote speaker to kick off our Consortium 2.0. Our speaker is an individual who is a celebrity in officiating circles and to sports fans who tune into various events on TV, Mr. Gene Steratore. Gene is a retired NFL referee and current rules analyst for CBS Sports. He officiated football for 33 years at the high school, collegiate, and professional levels, with his first NFL game in 2003. He officiated basketball for 25 years at the high school and collegiate level, working his first NCAA Division I basketball game in 1997, and subsequently working in 10 collegiate conferences. He retired from both basketball and football in 2018. He currently serves as a rules analyst. I'm sure you've all seen him on TV during CBS's coverage of the NFL, SEC football, and NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament. Wearing uniform number 114, Steratore was assigned as the alternate referee for Super Bowl 44 in Miami when the New Orleans Saints defeated the Indianapolis Colts, am I allowed to say that, in Indianapolis, 31-17, and the referee for Super Bowl 52 in Minnesota when the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the New England Patriots 41-33. He worked 14 total playoff games in the NFL during his career. Steratore and his older brother Tony are co-owners of Steratore Sanitary Supply in Washington, Pennsylvania. Gene has 3 children, daughter Natalie and sons Gene and Andrew. It's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight somebody who I've known for quite a while, and I'm so excited to see him after a very long hiatus, I think, Mr. Gene Steratore.
I don't have to click this mic, do I? It's just going to stay live, isn't it? Perfect. Well, I can tell you that although it's been 5 years since I have retired, I am still very uncomfortable hearing my name and then have applause follow it. So if we could collectively just redo that again and you could just boo, yell, throw things, I think I'd feel more in my element, right? I can also say that through the course of this period of time and getting these opportunities to speak to multiple variations, I just can't write things down. I found that scripting myself or putting myself in those boundaries wasn't what I did for 4 decades. You know, you always wait until you get on the field to kind of feel how the game evolved early, and it was part of your additional level of awareness to realize this is the kind of atmosphere I have today. And the same always applied to basketball for sure, and that happened very quickly. It didn't take too many snaps to find out what the environment was in a basketball gym. But I have found comfort, for whatever reason, of carrying something about the size of an index card, and then have that have some information on it. So this is the gist of kind of what I work off of. So I really appreciate it, Dana. Thank you. Thank all of the NFHS, the whole staff, for putting this together. It's the 2nd year. It's the beginning. No great house is built without a fantastic foundation. And the same applies for something like this hard work and effort that all of you are putting in from multiple different avenues. Share one common bond. And that is that at the high school level, we understand the value of athletics and that experience as it relates to student athletes. The value of that is tremendous, not only in their athletic experience, but in their growth as young adults, right? It's the childhood to adult bridge, and also dealing with adult things in an environment that athletics creates. Not being perfect, dealing with failure, dealing with unfair criticisms, dealing with a lot of things, successes as well, and how do I handle successes? So truly, the high school level is that place. And that's still where, if we really think about it in its rawest terms, or when those student athletes are going home. In college, they go to their dorms. In high school, they go back home. Their guardians, their parents, their loved ones are doing teaching prior to those events, through those practice weeks, through navigating all of those other things that they kind of have in the air. And without that understanding, I can tell you from an officiating lens, you can't officiate well without understanding your entire environment, just like the room here. So it's not appropriate for me to come up and just start talking without thanking every one of you. We share the same mission. We have the same passion. And that mission and that passion is never going to be an easy road to be successful. And quite honestly, I don't want it to be an easy road. Because if it were easy, just like life, we'd take advantage of it and be enabled, right? None of us are spoiled children in that regard, so this shouldn't be that way either. This is kind of neat. If I get close to this, I get that stereo feeling. So I would also like to tell you that not just at the high school level here, it's wonderful to know that we have NAI representatives from around the United States that handle large things, AAU level, intramural level, and in all honesty, I'm the second most popular and the second best referee in the room, because we're fortunate enough to have Steve Shaw here, who has an unbelievable resume too with the white hat on, and is doing amazing things at the NCAA level and making a huge difference in officiating. I am envious because I watch more training tapes now that I've retired than I wanted to watch when I refed. You never wanted to watch the training tapes when you refed. A, because you didn't want to see you on the training tape making a mistake. And B, because you were just all sported out. It was like, I gotta watch another tape. Since I've retired, I can't watch enough tape. And Steve, only being a few years into this role, I watch him do these weekly training tapes. And I'm thinking, he never misses a beat. I know he hasn't memorized all this, and he's just flowing. I'm watching his eyes to see when he's looking at the teleprompter, he's just that smooth. And he was on the field. And because of that control element, he managed gigantic stages. That's a big part of this avocation and this livelihood called officiating. Play calling's play calling. You're supposed to get the plays right. Big portion of the game, because if you can't get your plays right, you really can't really do this. But it's not the whole enchilada. 60% of the things get your plays right. It's a given. How do we handle the rest of this? How do we handle this environment? How do we handle being treated unfairly when we know we're right without losing our composure? That is this very brief overview of what the art of this thing called officiating truly is. That's an intriguing thing. We're here, though, in more specific ways, to talk about some challenging things that we're facing, right? Look, I grew up in a home that I was born into officiating. My father worked 34 years of Division I football and 33 years of Division I basketball. He worked Bear Bryant and Joe Paterno 6 times, 5 Army Navy games. You know, we grew up in an atmosphere where it was the Ivy Leagues when I was a little kid, and driving to Princeton or Yale, running through the campuses with my mother and 6 brothers and sisters, because Friday when my dad went to his pregame, we went to campus and to the library and learned something. But it was that life. My dad was the first group of officials hired in the Eastern 8, which then became the Atlantic 10 when it was formed, and was hired in the Big East the second year it was formed. So I got to live that unbelievable kind of what I thought was normal in a really, really, really intimate way. But it wasn't walking in school because as 6 or 7 of us were told, you never go to school on Monday and tell anybody you were at Penn State in Alabama on Saturday. We don't talk about it. That's not what officials do. Self-praise stinks. Those are the messages in my home, unbeknownst to me, that were a reflection of the integrity of an official throughout their time on the playing surfaces, and maybe equally as important, their time off of the playing surface. See, officiating in my family was a prerequisite to the lifestyle of living in an imperfect, understanding your imperfections and embracing them. Also being successful and setting very high bars for yourself, but never celebrating what you thought was a win. Joe Paterno recruited my father in 1952 in Washington. Penn State at that time was a farm school that didn't have 3 buildings. Pitt was the national enterprise in Pennsylvania. My dad went to Pitt. We all refereed Joe, my brother Tony, myself, my cousin Frankie, sat through Franco Harris and Lydell Mitchell and Mike Reed on the sidelines when I was 8. And Tony worked LeVar Arrington when he jumped over the center and blocked the punt. 2 years later, I worked him when he beat the heck out of the Pitt punter after he just kicked the ball. And every time we'd go, Joe would come to the locker room because he wanted to walk us through the stadium, not to work us, but to tell stories about why in 1952 my dad just didn't want to run the football at Penn State. We never held it against him, and it was funny because my dad always made a controversial call against Joe. And it just seemed like it was going to happen. Didn't matter what game, it always came down to that. But the one thing that I learned about those trips home from State College, when it was just a 2-lane road, and it looked like Field of Dreams when you look out your window, because that was the only road that took you from State College to Lock Haven through Port Matilda, is that Penn State didn't have any names on their jersey. They didn't have any white shoes. They were about the Greek philosophy. If you could beat your opponent by 50, you beat them by 5. You weren't out to embarrass your opponent. You were just about to win. But you never wanted your opponent to know just how good you were. You always wanted your opponent to think, gosh, if we'd have just got these couple of plays right, maybe we could have beat them. Unbeknownst to their opponents, they probably had another 100 plays that he never showed anybody. But it was that type of thought process philosophically which started to burn into what I didn't know was a child's mind, to understand that this sports thing is more than the glamour and more than this self-praise, attention life. Started 4 years as a quarterback in my high school, went to Kent State to play quarterback, was a 3-year starter on a high school basketball team that lost 4 games in 2 years but never won the state championship because the other little high school in my town won the state championship. And we only lost to them twice and one other team once. So was very successful as a child in athletics, but also started reffing basketball when I was 13 or 14 at the YMCA for Yoo-Hoo Pop, for those of you that remember what that was, and $1 bill a game. And didn't know why officiating was so much harder than playing, but was completely addicted to that and hooked by the fact that this is hard. And people are really screaming at me and not cheering me for something that I know personally I'm doing very well. Now, my psychologist loves the fact that I still haven't figured that out yet. She tells me at the end of every session, Gene, we've discussed this for the last 8 years, but if you'd like to ask the question again, we can revisit it. But there was something about that, to me, that became a very deeply internal thing. And I can tell you, 85 basketball games a year, right? Single dad, majority of my life with 3 children living with me, driving home after every game and never staying over no matter where you were. We're allowed to get home at 5 in the morning so the kids didn't know dad was gone when they get up for school. But it also was a ton of windshield time, quietly within yourself, right? Quietly within yourself. Why did so-and-so act the way he or she did in this contest tonight to me? Was it personal? Not to mention the thousands of hours of thinking about all the other issues in your life, right? But then there was this challenge within myself that honestly didn't have anything to do with an attention-seeking thing. But it was this acceptance that, damn it, this is hard to really get right. And one human error at the wrong time is going to create a lot of anxiety to people that I'm related to that did nothing wrong as I climbed that ladder. I didn't resent that, and I never personalized it, which I thought was a very good practice for my own self-growth. So I took officiating to that place. It wasn't an avocation. It was a tool for me to learn an awful lot about who I was as an individual, and it took the Greek virtues to me of humility and what true happiness meant and what it meant to self-critique and all of these things that I think make us better people. And I felt like I had the opportunity to do it in real time in the most intense atmosphere you could possibly create without any script, and knowing that everything I did, if I worked a perfect game, no one would say a damn thing of me. And I loved every second of that. And also knew if I missed one call in a 4-quarter game at the wrong time, that the world could see that that other 3 hours was completely worth nothing in the public atmosphere. Pressure, unfair pressure. Resent it, point fingers, personalize it, or get to 10,000 feet and understand that you volunteered to put yourself in that environment for your self-growth. The money was great, put children through school. It wasn't like that in high school. It was maybe going to Kennywood for 180 bucks and being able to play games at the amusement park. Then it became, oh my, we can actually go on vacation for a week if I save this. Then it became, oh my, I think I can supplement some secondary educations, right? So the payback to those that sacrificed at home while I got to continue to play, it wasn't full circle unless they were taken care of either. So it was a fabric thing for me as a person. The one thing I do remember, and theme for today, I think if we get to this space, then we attack challenges. First, we have to get to the place of what does all of this mean to everybody? Everybody. And to me, it's game day. As simple as that sounds, and as I age, and I'm into that next level of that decade, I changed that left number here, which I don't like changing that left number, but game day. You know, again, older brother, 4 years older, great athlete, amazing wide receiver, really good basketball player, sister swimmer, great swimmer, cheerleader. And I was 6 years old, and somebody was putting a game jersey on in my house, right at the breakfast table. It was game day, they put their jersey on. The talk at the breakfast table was about the game. How excited I was. Grandma and Grandpa were coming. It's game day. They're having a pep rally. My hair was right. My game jersey was on. It's a special moment in a home. You must understand that to understand the appreciation of what this means on a granular level, to know how important it is that we do this. This is what is going on the ground now, right? You have to get that. You have to get it when you see grandma screaming at you like you never saw her screaming. You're thinking, yep, it's the only time she came to see grandson play or granddaughter play. She's emotionally tied. She's not herself. Don't take it personal, right? But it's game day. There is something about game day. At least to me, it got to a place where it became an obsession, because 20 NFL games and 85 basketball games a year. Look at, 8 months out of the year, there were 2 days didn't go by where I didn't wake up, getting my hair right, brushing my teeth, because it was game day. By the end of that day, I was going to be on a playing surface and enjoying that moment. Not for self, not for that, but for the idea of what game day meant. To the coach waking up in his or her house, to the pressures that game day means in that home. Some days good, some days bad, right? But it's game day. I never walked on an NFL field an hour before a game or any football game at any level, and everyone wasn't smiling. It was game day. You went out to see the coach. How are you, coach? It's good to see everybody's looking good. It's game day. There's a pump up about that. It energizes you. You are in that moment. You are part of that moment. And you are a very important part of a small percentage of this outcome. And many things that you may decide can affect that experience, which is game day. So the responsibility was huge, and who else to do it? Right? Humbly, that level of confidence has to seep in you. That same level of humble confidence takes you through very trying moments through your lives. You get to apply it, so it was a circle. And to get just kind of real, we're having a shortage. The game is in trouble. Game days are at stake from 7th grade to 12th grade at the scholastic level. There are not enough officials to officiate game day. This entity can't be one of the reasons that Susie doesn't play in the 6th grade game after school at 3:15. So how do we get there? How do we help the shortage? It's real. Now I can tell you, I'm a Division II and III football supervisor. I have been involved in Division III football and basketball 41 years. I've been a supervisor direct for the last 17 and an assistant for the other 23. The biggest leap in an official's career is from that high school level to that small college level, because at the college level, it's their livelihood. That guy's not coaching and teaching history. He doesn't make $6,000 to coach the football team, and his pensions and his teaching. The Division III coach, making $65,000, $70,000, needs to run 3 camps in the summer. You get real with it and granular with it. He or she's probably in the early to mid 30s. They've been living as position coaches, coordinators, living in the faculty dorm on the campus while they were a position coach, and finally got the opportunity to be a head coach at the small college level in a little town that doesn't pay a lot of attention to the athletics. First time in his family life, though, that the 2 kids look and say, "Daddy, are we really buying the house? Mommy, is this our house?" 2 years into a 4-year contract, "Mommy, Daddy, is Susie going to be my friend until I graduate while I'm in 4th grade?" "Yes." And all of a sudden, the Division III coach is not successful, and he or she is 34. Where does a Division III coach go when they're fired in life? Is there more pressure at the SEC or the NFL? Or is there more pressure in a Division III town of 5,000 people where there's 100 people watching the game and no hot water in the shower? If you're a ref going to work the Division III basketball game in February and one's 2 and 15 playing 3 and 14, are you bitching in the car because the supervisor gave you such a crappy game and you didn't get the big game that's on tonight? And it's all political. And I'm telling you what, these 2 are knuckleheads that coach. And if either one of them say a word tonight, I'm whacking them. Or are you thinking about the reality of where you're about to drive? Somebody's selling a house. If you're not doing that, then you're not understanding officiating. If we're not teaching that, shame on us. Those aren't officials' responsibilities completely. They're administrators' responsibilities to make it real for officials so they understand the magnitude and importance of their process. So, with the shortage, I have to hire people out of high school with 3 years high school experience, put them on a college field, and make decisions on somebody's career. I am scared to death on Saturday, and I'll be the first one to tell you. I have fantastic officials, 122 of them. 36% of them, 36 of them, not 36%, haven't reffed organized sports for more than 3 or 4 years. If I don't put them on my staff, we don't have enough officials. So believe me, There were many Saturdays while I'm covering the SEC on CBS where I'm looking at one of those computers, not those 400 screens, seeing what the heck's going on in a Division III football game somewhere in southwestern Pennsylvania, Ohio, or West Virginia. Okay? But that's where we are. This is the reality of our situation as we sit today. We can't coach them up so fast that we information overload them. We let them know that although it sounds like, boy, it wasn't like this when I was a kid. You didn't have to work 10 years of college, you ever even get looked at by somebody. 8 years of high school, and the list was long. We walked uphill both ways to school, the whole 9 yards, right? The reality is it was more difficult. There were more bodies. People wanted to officiate. The fraternity was much stronger 30 years ago. But because there's a shortage, if you're a young aspiring official, the opportunities are phenomenal. The opportunities are phenomenal. So don't take it for granted and take advantage of me because you have to use me. Take it as an opportunity to get coached up as quickly as you can and get on the fast track. My children are much smarter than me, and they should be. I raised them. But they are also much more adept to their surroundings than we were, just as we were a little more adept than our predecessors. These kids have video. They can see themselves in every game they rep. They can be observed, not evaluated. They need to be constructively observed. You can do it from home. We don't have to go sit in the gyms anymore with our tablets and watch, although we need to, because video doesn't show anything other than the plays. It doesn't show them managing the game. It just shows plays. But we still need to use the tools to understand we have a responsibility with a shortage of officials to fast track as much as we can and get 2 or 3 years of experience put into officials in a year and a half, if we can. That's part of our job, not theirs. So how do we recruit them? For me, I think the greatest analogy that I can use is, again, harkening back. I think probably the lowest hanging fruit would be those that are athletes today. And it would make sense, right? But always remembering that the active playing participants, I'm guilty, didn't like officials when you played, for the most part. So it's really not a natural progression to go from playing this thing to becoming one of those people. But I will tell you this, the similarities are profound. Young athletes aren't aware of the similarities because a majority of them, especially at the high school level, do enjoy the pep rallies, do enjoy the girlfriend being at the games, do enjoy walking through the hallways of high school when everybody knows it's that day, and they're part of that experience. Talk to the college athlete though. I left from being a 3 or 4 sport star in a little town to being a quarterback at a pretty big college where when I went to my first class, everybody looked and whispered, there's the dumb football players back there, they're taking this one as an easy break. They eat in a different dining hall than us. So I went from being this immature kid in some ways with that self-attention and all that, to looked upon like, we're getting the easy way out thing. It became more of a different type of a job. But one thing I did realize as I really started to get into officiating were how many things that athletes did that I happened to be doing as an official. And then I really realized it wasn't just the game I was addicted to. It was putting these 8 plates in the air and spinning them all in my whole life. And oh, by the way, at the end of the day, let's max all the other pressures and all the other plates you have in the air with putting you in an environment that's so intense and so completely crazy, and you have to take control of that and manage it. That's the dessert at the end of the day. And by the way, get home and get to sleep because you got 6 hours before you got to get up and do it all again. That's an athlete's life. Athletes in college, athletes in high school, They get up, they go to school for 5 hours. School ends, they go to their practice. Practice ends, it's 5:30. They go home, something's on the table, good Lord willing, for them to eat. Dinner's over at 6:30. They're in the dining room studying, if they're in a good household, till 7:30. They may get an hour and a half of Xbox after that. It's 9 o'clock. Then we're going to talk a little bit as a family. Get your bucket to bed because the alarm's going off at 5:30. You're going to be up and get ready to do it again. My sister was up at 4 o'clock every morning swimming at the school at 5. She was the most dedicated athlete in my family. No one knew who the swimmers were. I had such an unbelievable admiration for her dedication without anyone caring who the swimmers were in school. Right? What do you do as a ref? The same thing you did as an athlete. Talk to the athletes. It's a low-hanging fruit. Tell them what they really are in love with, or navigating college classes, their relationship, study group with their team, traveling on the games, being away, living a little bit of a lonely life, a lot of introspect, dealing with criticism from the coach, pointing out things, sometimes a little bit of unfair treatment at times. It feels like you're going to get through it, you're going to quit, you're going to point a finger, going to cry, going to quit, going to tweet. What are you going to do with it? The same elements, right? Then, in officiating, if you do it long enough, family, children, job, travel, sleep deprivation, have to have a good diet, need to keep physically fit, as Father Time starts to win. The most athletic things I ever did in my life were from 48 to 55. And I still shoot hoops for 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Told a lot of NFL players, my most athletic achievements are when I turned 50 to 55 with 5 herniated discs, no sleep. Trying to run with these dogs is no matter how many miles I ran, Father Time kept taking a half a step away. But it was that I felt kept me kind of young in this mental and emotional thing through major pressures, family issues, the challenges of life, the pressures of life, but to navigate them all and still want to put yourself in this unpredictable, crazy environment with such an addictive drug and such a rewarding thing that you want people to experience those challenges. There's a way we can express this to get people involved and recruit them. And I think that athletic endeavor is the way to do it. If you can get your high school athletes into an auditorium and speak to them about it. If we can develop a program where we use some high school athletes to help maybe with a licensed official officiate 4th grade basketball because there's a shortage. Maybe that 16-year-old high school athlete who's working with someone that's licensed gets that hook already. There's an idea, right? If it can be passed. I don't know the legal ramifications. I spitball a lot, not understanding the bureaucratic tape. Intramurals, one of the greatest sporting vehicles in America, right? You go to a major college and watch intramurals, you're going to see 50, 60 athletes that were good in high school, real good. A lot of intramurals teams beat a lot of Division III teams' buckets now, I'll tell you that right now. It's fact, okay? There's people there. So let's look for that fruit. Let's look at that. But I also think, as opposed to just saying, hey, you played. Look, there's a little money in it. You know, what the heck, give it a try. That's not going to work. Because they're going to go to a parochial school gymnasium right after church, sit with somebody that was 2 pews behind him, and an hour and a half later, for 17 bucks, make a call on little Billy that walks every time he gets the ball. So how many times can I call a walk, or do I just let him walk, or don't I let him walk? And then when he walks, the same people I said, peace be with you, an hour and a half ago look like they want to hang me, and I'm going to stop the game and say, yo, the priest is still up there. These aren't Hail Mary issues either. These are our Father issues you're saying right now. You get up upstairs, you can't get by with the glory be, and you just took communion and get back up there. You need to purge yourself. That's not going to keep officials. We got to be honest. But we also have to let them know that, hey, in that environment, it's not personal. It's not personal. None of it's personal like that. But when it does get personal, we have to address that as we move forward, right? So now let's say we get them. How do we retain them? How do we train them? As I said, in Western PA, we launched a little thing, and Mr. Gephardt and Ms. Lombardi from the PIAA came over to a high school in Western PA a month and a half ago. And this was just on a bunch of retired guys sitting around because we get a little extra time. We haven't graduated to sit at the mall yet. We're close. We haven't graduated enough to be at McDonald's at 8 o'clock because that's where the heavies are. We get there around 10:30 when they're switching from the Egg McMuffin to the fries. So you don't forget the hash brown or fries. So we're allowed at McDonald's at that point. So that group of men now and women, we sit around and talk. And truthfully, because if you're an official for life, 95% of your social interaction was with officials. So about 12 of us, men and women who have gone through this journey in this little area of Pennsylvania, are like, boy, I see a lot of our officials. I don't see a lot of good communication with coaches. This generation doesn't communicate well. It's not just the high school level. I don't know that they know how to communicate well. But boy, I'm seeing it. Can we help? You know, we were helped. Every good official has many mentors at many levels. The majority of his or her progress was not on the court or field. It was in the car. Could have been in the bar, but it was in the car. Right? It was driving to the game. It was setting the table for that contest. It was getting in the car after the game. Hey, what did that coach say to you after you called that chicken shit foul? He said a lot of things. What'd you say to him? I got pissed. I didn't say anything. You didn't communicate? No. You got to communicate. Well, say this. And I'd look at those old timers and say, what? Try it. Say it. He's something crazy. Wasn't aggressive, wasn't confrontational. Try it. Some of the gun, because I really wasn't that good of a play caller, I had a lot of those interactions. Coach said it a couple nights. You wing it. It's like, it worked. It like worked. He went away. He kind of looked at it, double took it. And then he went on. I'll be damned, I can do that. Yeah, man. Well, maybe I can do, yeah. And that's working. I got this player, he's crazy, gets a tee every night. I wanted that player. I wanted Draymond Green and Izzo every night. Again, my psychologist loves me for it. You want that. You go to get that. Right? That's how you do this. You don't seek an exit, and you surely don't seek a crutch. So, this group of retired, good old retired old people, decided, you know, we go watch basketball games. What the heck? There's 5 schools around every one of us within 10 miles. Let's just go out and just start watching games. We don't want to evaluate them, but we do need to observe them. So we put together what we call a celebration to the season. High school in Western PA invited every official. Pennsylvania PIAA was so gracious to put a little hook in the mouths of them, said, we'll give you a credited meeting. We had a 4-hour gathering, had 140 people, 110 were of the age of 45 and older. half of them wanted to just hear us talk again because they haven't heard anybody talking like this for the last 15 years. So they came back and were like, my God, we needed to hear this. I feel like I'm young again. But the young ones aren't here for the most part. True. Doesn't mean we're giving up. But we went out. I don't know if I have that Google Doc up on that screen. Jace, we have that Google Doc back there, my man? Do we have that little doc? It's a Google Doc. It takes 2 seconds to put together. There are no evaluations on this. This is a little thing we put together so every one of the retirees can get it on. It's on their phone. They just fill out a couple things. There's a comment box. We put 2 positive plays, 3 positive plays, how they managed the game, how they did that. It's just a simple little walkthrough, right? Very simple walkthrough. Not you graded 9 out of 10, 2 out of 8. Mechanics, extremely poor. This negativity based on frame by frame. Missed 3 block charges, and 2 of them probably the observer missed, because they're 50-50 plays. Don't want that in these. Want to talk to them about how did they engage with the coach. How was your positioning? I'm not worried about your judgment. If your judgment's terrible, it's not going to take long. You're going to leave. I'm worried about where you are on the quarter field to apply that judgment. Because if you're in the wrong spot to begin with, we can't evaluate your judgment. So judgment is not something you do to fast-tracking young officials. Positioning is. Management is. Okay? So we decided we're just going to do it for free. No money, not paid. We're not doing it for that. Someone did this for me. If I don't do this now, I did a disservice to a fraternity that made me humbly a better person than I would have been had I not done that. To me, that's an obligation, personal obligation. To the majority of good officials, it's the natural progression. That's what makes the fraternity so beautiful. Outside of your immediate family, if you are an official, a true official, not a cancerous official, a true official, your family, your faith, your family, your crew. Sometimes your family and your crew. If you're a good football official, you could live with the same crew for children getting married, people dying, trouble at home. You live it. Live it. Bad call. Entire world's death threats. Kids can't go to school for a day sometimes. You live it. They're family. You pay that forward. If you're a bad official, you blame the grader. You blame the politics. You have a crutch. Not a good thing in officiating. Sure as hell is unattractive in life. But if assigners are political and observers have an agenda, just one time, 1 out of 1,000, you ruin the 999. 1. So as much as officials are responsible for their own behavior, they carry a fraction of the integrity that's necessary to make officiating a fraternity. That fraternity lies within the administration. That's a fact. So those are the things that need to be held to account. That's how we get officials to want to do this. When people earn their right. I never cared about a Super Bowl on my father's grave. My quote was my whole life, I don't work for jewelry. And I don't work for the little blue patch. There were things that had to be met to get those gains. Don't deny them. Not upset that that was the case. Never complained about it. It wasn't important to me. And I mean that. It's going to be tough for the NFL White Hat to go to the Final Four. It didn't look good to the Blue Bloods in the Final Four. And it sure as hell wasn't good for the Final Four or Elite Eight guy to be on the Super Bowl field while he was on TV 6 times a week before the Super Bowl. That wasn't what I was doing for. I did it out of greed, not for the money, but for the pressure. Solely for the pressure, addicted to the pressure, a glutton to finding the hardest matchup and wanting to do it every single day. The best game I worked was in Super Bowl 52, although it was a hell of a day. But it sure was Seattle and San Francisco in an NFC Championship game, when every second of that 3.5 hours had to have the most highest level of awareness to be able to function, that my head hurt for 2 days from the noise and the focus. This is hard. It is hard to be on that stage and get shit right 5 nights a week. And it's fun. God, is it fun. That passion has to be sold to people, and it doesn't have to be at that stage. When I had Upper St. Clair and Jim Render, the best high school coach in the south part of Pittsburgh, playing North Hills and LeVar Arrington in the Iron Bowl or whatever the hell they called it. That was the most pressure I was ever under, maybe including the Super Bowl. Because I was 23 years old and didn't know what to do. And they were old and wicked. And I had no, 35 years of how I can massage. And Izzo would look and I would think, shoot, nothing against you, you're really intense. But compared to that guy that got me when I was 22, this is a cakewalk. I did you 30 years ago, you know? So the value of this is it starts at a very, very, early time. So a little bit of that on the training, retaining. Get officials to drive together. If you assign games, look at where they live. Mix the experience with the inexperience. Make sure that if they're within 20 miles, 25 miles of each other, they are mandated to drive together, not strongly recommended, mandated to drive together. That's how it used to be. We got our schedule on a Post-it, smacked on our forehead, not on one of the 43 different assigning sites. That you have to click where I'm going to be if I don't take your game, and who I'm going to be with, and what time I'm going to leave, and you just got it on your forehead. Couldn't read it. But you got the car. So drive Ed Manning, God rest his soul, was a great Big Ten umpire, and he would tell me, Eugene, I'm in the twilight of a mediocre career. He wasn't the best basketball official. My dad supervised the Pennsylvania Division II and was reluctant to go from 2 officials to 3. When the whole world was working 3 officials for 6 years, we were still working 2. Because we didn't want to give up the $95 and go back to 80 to put another person on the court. We wanted the extra $15, we'll do 2. But I would drive Ed Manning from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, all the way up to Erie, Pennsylvania, through 25 inches of snow, pick him up 30 miles up the highway. We had a common meeting area at Kings in Wexford. Pull into Wexford, drive Ed. We would drive all night, go work the game, Penn State, Marin, Gannon, didn't matter. Start back home, highway closed, snow everywhere, white knuckle, looking outside, whiteouts. Get to Wexford at 12:30. I got 3 little infants at home and a wife that would like to see me, more than likely, and it was midnight, 12:30, and I still had an hour to go. Ed would get out of my car, walk into his, turn the engine on and the frost on. There was 9 inches of snow in his car. And he'd get back in my car. And I'd look and go, well, there's a lot of snow on, it'll melt. We haven't finished the talk yet. I've been in the car with him for 2.5 hours. How am I going to tell this veteran, look, I said, I'll go out and wipe the snow. Don't touch that car, leave it alone. The snow scratch it if you start wiping. And watch 3 or 4 inches of snow melt off the windshield. While we kept talking about football, basketball into life, in scenarios. So get them to drive with each other. That helps. Keep them off of social media. no attention-seeking moments, and teach them that, because you want to teach them the value of what it means to do this. It's not an attention-seeking endeavor. It's a personal satisfaction endeavor that's extremely private. A title of one of the books that maybe someday gets released is titled Alone in Front of Millions. I lived 35 years of my life alone, almost completely alone, in hotels at 2 in the afternoon, in cities in the middle of the week. Nobody in these hotels at 2 on Wednesday? I sure had one of these. That was my life. And then everybody else went home, had their dinner and went entertained. It was time to go to work. Right? But it's personal, and it's quiet, and it's private, and it's beautiful. Because you learn more about yourself. You're a better critique of yourself than the graders. As you climb the ladder, when scrutiny is necessary to that eyelash on a painting that's got to be right instead of a charcoal pencil at the early time, it's essential to have that type of critique when you climb that ladder. But it's also even more important that you're the one that's doing that critiquing before you get that other critique. And that is the same recipe that will make you a better person. So let's get real quick. We talked about that game day breakfast. It sounded like rainbows and unicorns. Because it was. And, because I'm forever the optimist, the majority of households still have that experience. I truly believe that. But I would be naive and not a real ref if I wasn't honest to say that the temperature's changed. Not because I'm older, not because things were nicer back then, but because things have changed. The temperature is up. Some breakfasts, if you're a realist, are, I don't know why the hell he's not playing you, Billy. You know his uncle's on the school board. You've done all the work. Kid missed 5 free throws at the end of the game and he's starting again tonight. Coach is full of shit. There's breakfast tables like that. Hope we don't have that ref we had 2 weeks ago. He stunk. If I see him again, I'm telling you, you're gonna have to hold me back, Martha. He cheated us. There's breakfast tables like that. We can't get in everybody's house. We do our own work. We also can't deny those breakfast tables aren't real. Those breakfast tables are coming to your schools. Those people are coming. This culture and climate allows, over the last 15 to 20 years, for things to be said to millions of people that you would never say in a room like this where I can see your eyes. I would never offend you in such a demeaning way if I had to see the hurt or shock on your face of the words that I expressed to you. I would never say them. But if I can sit in my bedroom or in the stands and tweet and spew hatred and things I would never think out loud or let anybody think, I can do it now. And I'm not held to account. That's the climate that we live in a percentage. Can't lie to yourselves. It's a national problem. It's not a sport issue. Completely. We have a problem as a country. We have a problem as a people. That for some reason, that's becoming okay. Even to make it worse, what if I say this grotesquely obnoxious thing and I get a thumb up underneath of it? I get likes. I get retweets. People enjoy this. I'm going to do more of it. Let me get a little more toxic. Maybe it'll get more likes. Next thing you know, we're in a gym.
Same thought process with no accountability on this toy that's become an extension of our brains and heart is now in the stands. And now I'm going to say what I've been tweeting because I don't feel like I need to be held to account. And I'm doing it. And sometimes, unfortunately, I'm getting away with it. You want to wonder why there's an officiating issue for a percentage of this? You want to wonder why? We as the adults, this is our time in history now. They're all fleeting moments. They go in 10 to 15 year cycles. And as you go through 3 of those in your life, from the time that you become someone who can think clearly and are responsible enough, you get 3 15-year segments. And then you're of the same emotional and mental capacity in the last 10 years, usually because we live long, that you were in the first 10. And the meat in between, it's your time. And they're rented spaces. And we all die. Somebody else fills it. And then what did we do with our 3 15-year windows? Was it better? Did we tread water? Or did we digress? Are we honest about what's going on? Are we hiding? Or are we just too damn busy? Because the whole world's at my fingertips. It needs to get to me within a blink of a button, and I have every bit of information in the world at the palm of my hand within an instant, and I don't have to talk to anybody. I talk to everybody without a count. At some point, when we gather, and we're in these athletic environments, where all of the tools to have this obnoxious behavior become understandable because the intensity's up. He did make a mistake. She did say that. They are wrong. I told you they're idiots. I can stand up and scream it. And we, you, and all of us make sure that that can't occur. We can't have security people in high school gyms knowing they're going to see that family for the next 3 years, but they're only going to see that rep for the next 3 days or 3 times. Allow those people to do that in that gymnasium. Officials can't stop games and should never have to stop games to get rid of people in stands. We are not there to interact with personal people. That's not what we do. We're about the game and the integrity of the game. Administrative people need to take care of their administrative buildings and the behavior that sits in their administrative structures. We can handle coaches. We teach that. It's an art. And it's a wonderful art that can be done. What happens beyond those lines, that's up to what you people do. The ones that are here that sit in those are your challenges. That's how you make game day better. Because guess what? Grandma is in that stands. She don't know what Twitter is. She's there to see Susie or Billy. She traveled 2 hours. It's her one game this year. There's some asshole back there that thinks Twitter's his toy. And he wants to spew profanity. Because now all of a sudden it's okay to swear in front of my grandmother. And guess what, unfortunately, in this day and age, if you stand up and say it isn't, God only knows what may happen for you to stand up with integrity. Because we're nervous about what may be the repercussions from that psycho that's yelling things that my grandmother can't hear. So what do? We sit. We ignore it. We let the behavior go without accountability. I'm not a negative speaker. I don't like ending speeches on a negative vibe. But I am a realist. I am a grandfather. Thank you, God. I thought parenting was good. Everybody said, I love being a dad more than anything in the world. They said, wait till you're a grandpa. I'm like, nah, forget that. That's all right. I need mine. For all of you that aren't grandparents yet, but your parents, tell them to drink and procreate. Just tell them. Because what grandparenting is, it's beyond anything I've ever experienced in my whole life. No, it is rainbows and unicorns now. I'm telling you. Okay? I had to bring it up. I was getting a little deep myself. So, I would say it this way.
Let's make every day game day. In our own minds. Regardless of whether there's a game that night. Let's wake up every morning and make sure our hair looks like it's game day. Make sure the conversation at the breakfast table is one of anticipation in an excitable, positive way for the day. If you live alone, get a couple pets. Tell them how wonderful it's going to be. Animals love you no matter what you do. But if we start, as corny as some things sound as I age, and cliches that have lived for decades that I thought were so stupid when I was little, there's a reason why they've lasted for decades. They're real. We have to start. We can't be a society that has so much information in front of us so quickly that we can't have an attention span beyond a one-word tweet or the next sensational thing. We need to focus on the news for 7 straight days on the same subject. We also need to get back to the roots of what made our childhood special in these environments. Not that they aren't now. It's not all gloom and doom. There's beautiful things happening. There's wonderful people in this world, and I still believe we're way better than we're bad. But we can't sit and live just on the fact that we're still on the upper percentage. We have to acknowledge that we need to suppress the other percentage, whether it's growing or not. Our behavior is that tool. Our level of what is morally acceptable is our weapon. We must not sit quietly and allow the other entity to hurt that game day feeling. We all need to have game days every single day. And as humbly as I can say this, I have a lot more time for any of you that think that there's something that I can do, not that I think I could change anything. I have that volunteer time. That is the blessing of being taken care of in a way that you would have never dreamed when you were a little poor 20-year-old on welfare with a 1-year-old daughter. So now it's time. Let's make that difference. Keep that thought and apply it and watch and think. Cancer metastasizes so quick. It takes life so fast. But positivity metastasizes just as quickly. And it steps on a lot of cancerous things. It's the decision on whether you want to be part of the cancer metastasization or the positive one. And I'm not choosing the first. And I hope we don't. And let's get back to where we go, to the roots and what you all do down on the boots on the ground in the little towns and the states around this country. And all the bureaucratic tape and the thousands of phone calls and all the complaints and the lawsuits and I can't believe this and the school boards and this. And man, I left there with a great feeling. Son of a gun, by Wednesday, shit, I had a school board meeting, I forgot everything I got said. Fact. Don't let it go. You control it. So take that as a personal challenge to yourself and make your own day game day, because if each of us do, it's game day every day for everybody. So I wish I could stay the weekend. I do have to go watch one more game with the right shape of the ball. But thank you all. God bless you. And I really appreciate this opportunity, so thank you very much.